Welcome to the second in our three-part Virtual Excursions training program. My name's Jackie Randalls and I've coordinated this program for national delivery as part of my role managing Inspiring Australia in New South Wales. For those new to Inspiring Australia, it's the national strategy for public engagement with STEM. We work with hundreds of community partners to connect scientific researchers to big audiences. And today's training is all about doing just that in the virtual world. It will be produced and delivered by Fizzics Education, Sydney Science Education and Refraction Media. And I'd like to acknowledge support from the New South Wales Office of the Chief Scientist and Engineer and Inspiring Australia's state programs in New South Wales, the ACT, Queensland, Western Australia and South Australia.
Hi there, Karen and everyone. Fantastic to be joining you today. And I've been so inspired, like many of you have, I'm sure, by all of the things that have been shown and talked about how you can use those kind of physical objects in the environment around you. And of course, with COVID-19, we were all stuck in our houses pretty much. So even going to the backyard and finding something that, people might not have had, even, finding those kids' drawings, pictures up on your walls, anything that you have to share is a fantastic way to engage your audience. Now, ANSTO has the wonderful challenge of not being able to show things at the atomic scale. It's a little bit too small for your average electron microscope. And also some of the really interesting areas which at ANSTO are not able to be shown on the physical tours, which they've been doing for many, many years. So we partnered with ANSTO 6 or 7 years ago at the start of developing their virtual tours, which has then morphed into e-learning. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to invite Bridget Murphy from ANSTO to tell us a little bit about how they've been using those resources. But I wanted to start now and just share with you one of the a few of the resources that we created to help sort of tell that story of what exactly ANSTO does. So I'll pop on the movie experience for you now.
You're about to go on a journey into the world of atoms. A world that forms the building blocks of everything in the universe. From the mind-boggling distances of space to the wonder of the world around us. We are formed from complicated components that are far, far smaller than the eye can see. From the billions of different cells that make up the myriad of life on this planet, to the DNA that forms the blueprint of our genetic code, and even further into the atomic world. Here, electrons travel at just under the speed of light. Protons and neutrons are bound strongly together by nuclear forces. Billions and billions of atoms fit into a space no larger than the head of a pin. Welcome to the amazing world of ANSTO. Our journey begins here at OPAL, Australia's only research reactor. Come with us now and explore the story into the very core of a nuclear reactor.
So ANSTO's nuclear reactor, as you see, is a research reactor, and its job is to look at things in great detail. So we wanted to have a way to show that kind of detail by sort of zooming right in from, it's about that universe scale, and then zooming right down to the atomic scale, and then to show the reactor itself. That's one part of the resources that we use. We actually created animations of all of the neutron beam instruments that are used at ANSTO, as well as the reactor itself. So I had the wonderful but challenging job of, standing above the reactor and filming it with this great videographer, and we took some 3D photos and added some interactivity to this. Now, it all sort of started as let's make a purely interactive experience. But then we found that it was actually useful to really talk to people as you go and get that input and, really understand that. And so Bridget's going to tell us a little bit in a second about how they've then split up those resources and use those. So video is a wonderful way to really take your audience on a journey with you, and to, you know, to introduce them, and then, you know, further than that, sort of talk to them about what they did as well. And we took that opportunity when we had to kind of redraw the reactor from that those CAD drawings and those engineering drawings in great detail, and then to really split it up and use it in a bunch of different ways. So I'm just going to share again briefly the a few of the other resources that we created there. Thank you, webinar, for making this easy. I saw some great questions about sharing screens and moderating, and I hope that this has been a very seamless experience for you in this resource. But I work in a small business, so I often do a lot of all of this by myself, and I have to say moderating and sharing and doing everything yourself can be very, very challenging. It's also very challenging to talk to a blank screen as you're presenting. But it is a great way to get across more of what you do. And what we had to do is, as I say, we had to really, you know, draw and illustrate things that were happening at that atomic scale. We wanted to make it an interactive experience. This is one of the things in an early version of the tour where, of course, if you've got a nuclear reactor, you want to know, you know, well, what would happen if I raise the pool temperature, say? And then we can talk about the safety protocols and, you know, how you prevent a reactor from going into flux, and different things like the water flow and the radiation level, and really unpack the science of all of those different levels in a way that's quite interactive. As I say, we also took some great photos. It's really easy to take a 3D photo and use that. There's software that you can use. You can actually upload 3D photos into web browsers and create a bit of a virtual tour of your own building and your own area. It's really not that hard to do. It was a wonderful experience to do it here with the reactor, redraw it. As I say, we did quite a lot of animation and a lot of different videos for that. And then we built it out into different sections. And one of the most important things is we've been emphasising for engaging your audience is thinking about, well, what did they actually want to know? So, you know, they might have gone for a nuclear medicine scan. They might want to know what that process is like. What is radiation in the first place? Can we unpack that for school kids? You know, what's the nuclear fuel cycle and the questions that you have around that? So just the way that you sort of organise your information and your content as well. One of the other things we did was to create an interactive map of the beamline research. There's a bunch of different really amazing instruments there which are used in different ways. So finding ways to talk about what they did and to explore that physical environment, you can do just by creating a little map of the area. And using a lot of the imagery and talking about that imagery, so you can talk in detail about what's happening there. But I will leave it to the expert, Bridget, who's been using this for many years, and ask her to join me to talk about that. And yeah, Bridget, over to you. I'd love to hear more about how you've been using that.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. So hi everyone, my name's Bridget. I'm the Education Manager at ANSTO. So we are located down at Lucas Heights in southern Sydney, and we are the location of Australia's only nuclear reactor. So in terms of science communication, I guess we have a bit of a challenge in the message that we need to communicate. Firstly, a lot of people come to us because they may have a certain level of skepticism, negativity, potentially distrust of our organisation, what we do. So it's really important for whatever we're doing to build trust, to maintain that personal connection with people in order to build trust, that they're not just being fed a message. And as Heather said before, another big challenge for us too is to communicate really highly technical information. We're talking about some of Australia's most important infrastructure that you can't find anywhere else, but that is doing science at a scale that you can't see with your naked eye. So the animations and the videos that Heather's team have put together have been really instrumental for us to be able to tell a story and really help people visualise things that they can't see otherwise. So the package that, yes, Heather?
I was just going to add to that, Bridget, thanks, that One of the things I thought was really interesting talking to you before about how you're using that that content was in the Meet a Scientist session. So you have ANSTO scientists who come and talk about what they do. As many of you who are working in sort of science and science communication know, there's obviously some great talent in science communication from the science side, but it's not always easy to translate from that research scale right down to school audiences or general public audiences. So I loved what you said about how you can sort of, an education officer almost acts as a moderator to jump in and say, great point, Kate, about that research that you're doing. Here's how it works in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, that's right. So, for example, some of the videos that and animations that Heather has put together are, fantastic animations of, for example, PET scans. So we might have an expert who's talking about their research that they're doing about nuclear medicines, and they might be talking about fluorine-18, which is the nuclear medicine that you use to perform PET scans. And we might have an education officer who can jump in and say, great point there, Ben. We're going to jump in and just show, and I might be able to do this just here. Here we go. Just show you a little video here of how we run one of these PET scans. And one important decision that we made with these resources is we chose for them not to have a voiceover. For a couple of reasons. The audio over video conferences does tend to be a little bit delayed. It can chop and change. And also because we're using these videos for a range of different audiences, we can modify the story that we tell over the top. So if we're explaining this video, for example, to primary school students, we tell a totally different story to if we're talking to some third-year nuclear medicine university students, for example. Okay. I will just show you another example too. So another type of video conference that we do is our inquiry skills video conferences, where we have a whole lot of equipment, including radiation detectors, radioactive objects that teachers don't necessarily have access to at school. And we will ask students and teachers to come up with an experiment using this equipment that they'd like to do, and they can perform that with us via video conference. So we'll use a second camera to go in and focus in on the dial of the scintillation counter, for example, help them collect the data in real time, and then we'll give the students some time to work in groups and present the results and discussion questions back to us. So they might have a piece of butcher's paper that they've drawn a graph of their results, and they'll hold it up in front of the camera and we'll discuss and give them feedback. So it's certainly not just a one-way information sharing session. We try to make it a dialogue as well. And one real benefit of the resources that we made together with Heather is once we've done that sort of experiment, we can then jump to, say, for example, this flyover of our reactor and really put the results that we've got from that experiment and talk about the real life applications. So this is a flyover of Australia's only nuclear reactor, OPAL. And you can see as you look down into it, it's actually got a bit of a shimmer. You can see the wave there because there's 13 metres of water over the top of the core of the reactor there that you can see underneath that square grate in the middle. And the reason why that water is there is for two reasons. So, for example, if we've just done a shielding experiment where we're looking at the effect of lead or the effect of paper as a shield for radioactivity, we can say we use this knowledge and these principles in real life to design our reactor. We use water as a really effective shield and a really effective coolant as well. So we've just found that we've been able to use these resources in a range of different ways. We can use them in our tours as well to help our tour attendees really understand and visualise some of the really small concepts that we're talking about when we point at our reactor or point at our neutron scattering facilities as well. Anything you want to add there, Heather?
No, I love seeing it again. It's certainly amazing to be able to sort of look down and into a nuclear reactor and really see what's happening there. No, I think we've got a couple of questions, Jackie K, to run through. So I might just hop into those questions.
Yep, no problem, Heather. Emily asked a question, I think, while you were playing the video beforehand. How do you play with video so well? Did you have to have it downloaded on your end? And does the quality depend on your own internet connection?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the Web 101 Essentials, we did talk about doing a speed test of your internet. So really essential to understand your own internet first. Be respectful of other people's internet as well. So I do love to show that video, and I do love to show videos, but it can always backfire on you. So I always download the video onto my local computer. I'm playing just with local sound. I don't have the kind of setup that Karen and Ben do. So I'm just playing that off my computer sound, make sure that I've got that sound high. I did try it on Monday with a whole bunch of different videos that were also embedded from YouTube, and that worked fine as well. So I think the main thing is really just to understand your upload speed. That's what's going to control your audience experience. Having said that, if people have a poor download speed, there's not much that you can do. They are going to have that jittery experience or that sound not being so well. So I think one of the important things, if you are doing anything that is sort of highly digital, is to provide analog counterparts, talk about what you're doing and what you're seeing, and just be aware that the experience might be different for different people. And we'll have links to that speed test and to all of these ideas and resources in the resources that we'll be sending out to you as well after this session.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, in terms of the way we're running our video conferences with schools in particular, if schools are dialing in from school, they've often got a whole lot of firewall issues, Wi-Fi issues that they need to contend with. So we always organise a test dial beforehand, as I know that Ben and Karen and all the guys who've been in the business for a very long time, it's always worth doing a test. Even if you've done a video conference with them the year before, it's worth doing a test to make sure that things haven't changed.
We did have another question for Heather, I believe. Olga asked, how much of the video production is done in-house and how much by an external provider?
Yeah, so that kind of video production, absolutely by an external provider. We're talking about, software that can map things to engineering drawings and really in-depth, kind of animation like that. We do a couple of different levels of animation. Animation is one of those things where it can, as Bridget knows, it can be this big a length of string, or it can be a length of string that goes around the world, depending on what you want to get out of it and how you want to do it. There's plenty of options, I have to say. You can use other people's videos in your presentations, but if you're doing anything that is basically your business presenting as a business, there are copyright issues. So do just be aware of those copyright issues, ask permission if in doubt, and just be aware of what you're using. There could be questions around that. Having said that, as I say, those were great examples, I thought, of Ben just getting his little farmer's friend from the car park. There's no reason that you can't use video that's almost everybody's phone nowadays has video which takes extraordinary quality. So just kind of finding ways that you can do video and do things like that. A lot of the video editing software has little WYSIWYG tools where you can create an animation around a title quite easily. So it's easy to create your own intro and outro. We've certainly had to just start doing it ourselves and just playing around with it. So there's a lot of options out there, but that kind of thing, yeah, that was something else.
Thank you for joining us for the Virtual Excursions training, supported by Inspiring Australia. You can find more information and top tips on the Virtual Excursions Australia website.